Welcome back, Scott Ferrell Show. I've got a great guest. If you've ever had any concern about the IRS, if you've had an audit, you always wanted someone to be on your side. You feel like the world's collapsing around you, but you've got that white knight, that silver lining, and that silver lining's name is Darrin Mish. Darrin and I met many years ago when we were doing a book together, and I realized that he was probably one of the most valuable people that I would ever meet. Why? You can't fight City Hall, and I don't know anybody can beat up on the IRS. However, I do know one guy. His name's Darrin Mish. Now, if you want to go by his website, getirshelp.com. A little bit about Darrin. He's been practicing law for a little over 22 years. Now, for the past 16, he's been representing people who owe more money than they can afford to the IRS. Now, you know the IRS is feared, but the great thing is Darrin gets it done, and he gets it done right for his clients. Also, multiple best-selling author, and what's really cool is you can tune in to Darrin's radio show on the iHeart Radio Network at 9 a.m. Eastern on Thursday mornings. The cool thing is you can call in his show and ask him questions. Also, if you go by his website, he's got really cool videos. They're very instructional. They're very easy to understand. And if you've got a question, he'll make sure you get an answer. Darrin, thanks so much for dropping by.
Hey, Scott, it's awesome to be here. Thanks for asking.
All right, what's it like having your own radio show and letting people come in and ask you questions just arbitrarily?
I'll tell you, when I first started the show, even having represented clients before the IRS for over 16 years, I was a little bit hesitant to just go ahead and open the show up to calls with questions that I weren't pre-screened, and I was afraid a little bit, honestly, that somebody might ask me a question that I don't know the answer to. Now, on the other hand, I don't really have a problem with telling someone I don't know the answer to their question, and so far it hasn't happened. So far, the reaction to the radio show has been really good, and it's a lot of fun. Your show is really solution-oriented, and that's how my practice is, and that's how my radio show is too. We try to take this really confusing, topic of IRS problems and having huge IRS debts, and we try and break it down piece by piece, see what our solutions or options might possibly be, and then we try to give those in really simple terms to clients so they can understand.
Right. It's amazing. Now, when you were doing this radio show, did they approach you and go, hey, dude, we got to have somebody like you on the air?
Well, actually what happened is I was a guest on my co-host's show. She does a local, it's funny, she does a local Tampa sort of real estate show because we live in the Tampa area. And she does she's a real estate agent, and she does a local Tampa real estate show. But she brings in experts that could sort of be peripherally related to real estate. And I was her guest. And then about a year went by, and we got to talking, and we decided to do the show together. Because there's a really big demand, and now we're talking about potentially getting a nationally syndicated deal together. So that's really exciting.
Oh, sweet, man! I know what that's like. Man, I've been doing Love and Lollipops on the radio now, 5-6 years, nationally syndicated. So, man, that's sweet.
Yeah, that's really good.
Let me ask you a question. Why in the world would someone who went through all that tough stuff in law school pick the IRS to work with?
My story is sort of interesting. I started out as a criminal defense attorney, and I was a criminal defense attorney for about 6 or 7 years. And then ultimately what happened is I went out, I was a public defender for 2 years. And then I went out into private practice at basically 2 years and a day. So I'm in private practice, and I got cash coming in. I got money coming in. That's all good. But in law school, they don't teach us how to handle payroll taxes or estimated tax payments or income taxes or any of that stuff. So quite honestly, Scott, I had a tax problem in about a year, maybe 2. But definitely, I would say definitely after the first year, I had a tax problem. And so I kind of went looking for help and for solutions.
Right.
And I couldn't find any. So then I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to figure this stuff out because I'm in a little spot of trouble here. And I figured it out, and I realized that it's so similar to criminal defense. And let me explain, because that sounds kind of bizarre, right?
Right.
But it's very similar. When you're doing criminal defense work, as a lawyer, you're defending the little guy against the government, right? And the ultimate, what you're negotiating about is usually time. Right? It's how much time in jail, how much time on probation, how much prison time. Well, when I deal with the IRS, I've learned the framework of rules, and I represent the small guy, the little guy, the taxpayer against the big bad government. but we negotiate in the framework of money. It's really almost the same practice. We just had to learn the framework of rules. So you were talking about being a basketball coach, right? I mean, there's slightly different rules from high school to college to pro. It's very similar. I just learned the rules, in my opinion, as good or better than the IRS employees that I deal with. And how can you go wrong? There's always, not always, but almost always something you can do to improve the situation.
Well, let me ask you this, and I see your posts on Facebook from time to time. What is the longest wait time you've ever sat on the phone with the IRS?
Oh, that's got to be, it's got to be 3 or 4 hours.
Wow.
And yeah, and my head is just steaming by the end of that. We just started. It's a little embarrassing. We just started implementing where I have staff stay on hold until they pick up the phone. And then they tell me, hey, we got a person on the phone. And that way it doesn't aggravate me so much. They have not changed the hold music at the IRS for over 16 years.
Wow. Let me ask you this. So you get them on the phone. Now, is that the only person you're going to talk to, or do you get put back on hold and we start all over?
There are times, far frequently than I would like to admit, they call, you get the first person, they say, oh, your client owes too much money, or we can't handle that. I'm going to put you in a different queue. And then, Scott, what happens is that queue hangs up on you.
And then you start all over?
Yeah. And then but most of my cases, I'm not calling the IRS and working it out like that. Most of them, I'm either doing appeals, I'm doing other administrative things, or I might even be dealing with a revenue officer, which is like a local person who has the case.
Now, if it's a local person, is it easier to deal with, I would assume?
Well, it's easier to reach that person.
Yeah.
But those people are not easier to deal with, because that person's job, that revenue officer's job, is to, I call it, persecute the taxpayer. It's to go find all the cash in the coffee can and, the cars and the boats and stuff. I've had clients repeatedly tell me, oh yeah, I have no assets. And I'll talk to the revenue officer later and they'll say, well, what about that 35-foot boat in his backyard? Oh, let me get back with you about that. I got to tell you.
Yeah, they've done their due diligence.
Yeah, sometimes it's there, it's the taxpayers, and sometimes it's like a friend's or whatever.
Oh my gosh. All right, let me start with the questions because I got a whole list here.
All right, cool.
I got people sending me some too. All right, so if you got a question, go ahead and send it to us. 706-889-9700, or you can email me, questions@scottferrell.com. All right, this is a popular question, but I want to know what the answer is. Is it possible to negotiate a deal with the IRS? And if so, what are the steps?
It's absolutely possible to negotiate a deal with the IRS. Not in every instance,
Right.
But it is possible. That's primarily what I do. I would say probably 50% of my practice is filing and negotiating what are called offers in compromise, okay? And an offer in compromise is where you make a deal to settle for less with the IRS. I'm going to go over some really simple math so that we can understand how an offer is calculated, okay? So let's say, in our example, taxpayer owes $100,000. The way we calculate the amount of the offer is we take monthly disposable income times 12 plus assets, and that equals the amount of the offer. So let me give you a real example, or a short example. Let's say your monthly disposable income is $100. 100 times 12 is $1,200. Let's assume no assets. I could settle that $100,000 case for $1,200. That's how it works.
Wow.
Now, there are some exceptions and things like that, of course, and your mileage may vary, but that's essentially how an offer in compromise works in what is called doubt as to collectability. There's a couple other real minor kinds of offers that don't really apply to that many people, but basically in an offer in compromise, what we're arguing or asserting and proving to the IRS is my taxpayer cannot afford to pay this money back within the life of the statute of limitations. Right. The statute of limitations is 10 years from the date the tax is assessed. So when you file a tax return with a balance due, the IRS only has 10 years to get that money. Now, what's really cool and kind of strange is the bigger the case within reason, the easier it is to settle. So a $20,000 case, a $20,000 tax bill is actually harder to settle than a $100,000 tax bill. And the reason is, if that taxpayer has 10 years to pay off 20 grand or 10 years to pay off 100 grand, which is easier to convince them that's never going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's understandable. All right, we've got about 30 seconds. Let me go ahead and let them know how to find you. Best way to get you is getirshelp.com, correct?
Yes.
All right, what's the radio show? How can they listen to you?
We have it on, I have an app right now. It's called the IRS Solution Attorney app. It's available on iTunes and Android. And you can also tune into my podcast, which is on iTunes as well.
All right, do me a favor, stick around. I got so many more questions. Folks, I'm going to have Darrin stick around just through the break. We'll get him another 11, 12 minutes. That way he can throw us out some more answers. So stay tuned. If you got any questions for myself or Darrin, 706-889-9700 or drop us an email, questions@scotferrell.com. We'll be right back.
The 50-50 sale is back at Schottenkirk Ford. 50 trucks must go in the next 50 hours. Shop over 250 trucks in stock and starting as low as $79.95. And there's several more on the lot just like it. Yes, 50 trucks must go, and not just Fords. We have all the best makes and models. You have 50 hours to cash in on huge savings. Don't miss our 50-50 sales event at Schottenkirk Ford in Jasper. Online at SchottenkirkFordJasper.com.
While the best athletes gather to compete, the rest of us gather to eat. Pizza Hut's Big Flavor Dipper is here. Almost 2 feet of pizza with 4 flavorful dipping sauces. Big enough to feed the whole team for a small price, just $12.99. The Big Flavor Dipper Pizza, only at Pizza Hut.
El Rey and Ellijay.
El Rey Mexican Restaurant.
Family owned and operated and a local favorite for families, parties, and meetings.
Great prices.
Friendly service and delicious Mexican cuisine.
Patio dining available.
Come sing in Carlos's Cantina every Friday 9 to 1.
Eat in or take away.
Same location for 14 years. Open 7 days at the corner of Maddox Drive and 515. North Georgia's favorite Mexican cuisine. El Rey and Ellijay.
Introducing Pizza Hut's first $5 flavor menu. Just $5 each when you order 2 or more. Say yes to a medium one-topping pizza. Yes to Wing Street Wings. Yes to new stuffed garlic knots. And much more. It's easy to say yes to our first ever $5 flavor menu. Only at Pizza Hut.
What you gonna do with all that junk?
North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds. Come on in to view the area's largest selection of fine jewelry at North Georgia Diamond. All repairs and designs are done on site by our jewelers. And North Georgia Diamond has the lowest prices on loose diamonds. You can also sell your gold, silver, and coins at North Georgia Diamond between Walmart and Lowe's in East Ellijay. Locally owned by Bill and Allison Craig, North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds in North Georgia.
The summer sell-down is on at Days Chevrolet in Jasper. And if you like to save, the time is now. Get a brand new Chevy Malibu for just $19,700. Loaded Silverado Crew Cab LT, just $33,500. Or a new 2017 Equinox from just $23,700. Days has bonus savings on every new Chevy. But time is running out. Don't miss the summer sell-down at Days Chevrolet in Jasper.
Better days ahead, Days Chevrolet.
Find new roads.
I'm Sheriff Dane Kirby, and I'll stand up for you.
I'm Stacy Nicholson, Sheriff of Gilmer County, and I will stand up for you.
Stand up and speak out. No matter how rich, cool, talented you believe yourself to be, how you treat people ultimately tells all. I am Allison Sosby, District Attorney, and I'll stand up for you.
Welcome back to the show. If you're just tuning in, got Darrin Mish on the line. He is one of the top guys that defends you against the IRS. Let me give you a website to make sure that you've got it in your Rolodex if you ever need it. GetIRSHelp.com. Also, you can tune into Darrin's radio show 9 a.m. on Thursday mornings. If you're in the Tampa area, you can listen in, or you can probably live stream it from their radio station. But go by this website, GetIRSHelp.com. Darrin, thank you so much for sticking around.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I'm getting ready to rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, number one, can the IRS take a person's home bank account and paycheck?
Sometimes yes and yes. Actually, yes, yes, and yes. So, so primary residence seizures are very rare. It's possible because even in states like Florida, where we have an unlimited homestead exemption, down here in Florida, we all kind of think, well, you can't take my house. Nobody can take my house. Well, there's one exception. The federal government, because of the supremacy clause in the Constitution. So federal law supersedes state law. They can take your house. It's very rare. Doesn't happen that often. Has never happened to one of my clients. The next one was your wages. Yes, they can. Your bank account. Yes, they can. But not until they send you a final notice of intent to levy, and that has to come certified mail. If they've never done that, then they cannot levy you. So if you owe one tax year, let's say you owe 2015, and you just got the first couple bills, no, you're not going to have your wages or bank account garnished. But after 31 days after you get the final notice, they can levy your bank account and your wages.
Okay. All right. Let me see the next one. All right. Someone doesn't file their taxes. Is that going to be a huge problem?
It depends on the context, right? So I have met in my career thousands of people who have gone multiple years without filing taxes. Okay.
Wow.
Knock on wood. None of them have gone to prison. So that's good, right?
Right.
Some people go to prison for failure to file. It kind of depends on how much money you make, what the source of your income is, and what your potential tax liability would be. I'll tell you a real short story. I had a friend worked at a local marine supply store. He was getting a W-2. He had adequate withholding. I was going into that store for years. One day he asked me what I did, and I told him. And he kind of pulls me aside. He goes, I haven't filed a tax return in like 10 years. I go, why? He says, well, I don't want to be in the system. I said, W-2, you're in the system. So ultimately, we filed his tax returns. He got some refunds, and he's been filing ever since. So was it a big problem for him? No, because he didn't owe the IRS any money because it was all coming out of his paycheck.
Right.
Now, if you're a contractor getting a 1099 or getting paid under the table, it might become a problem. It's hard for me to say.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. Let me get the next one. All right. This is an interesting question. If a business gets in trouble, I understand that even the employees can be held liable for unpaid taxes. True or not true?
True. Let me tell you the context.
Okay.
Payroll, so far we've been talking about income taxes, when you file a 1040. Well, payroll taxes are those taxes that I was talking about that get withheld from that guy's paycheck, right?
Right.
So payroll taxes are on like a special level that are much more serious than 1040 taxes. So yes, employees of a business can theoretically be held liable for a large portion of those unpaid payroll taxes, specifically if they are the type of people who can hire and fire, who can make decisions to pay bills other than the taxes, if they can sign paychecks, if they have bank signature authority, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's not, it's probably not the secretary in a 500-person firm, but it might be the CFO.
Yeah.
Might be the CPA. If in a really small business, it could be the secretary, because if the owner was naive enough to give the secretary signature authority on on the checks and told kind of gave her authority to who to pay, it could happen. I've seen it happen.
Okay. Darrin Mish is my guest. Let me give you his website one more time. GetIRSHelp.com. All right, next one. This one I've never thought about. If the IRS agent comes to your home, what do you do?
Well, it depends on if they have a gold badge and a gun, or if they have a plastic badge. And that's really funny, and it's only partly a joke. So if they have a gold badge and a gun, that is probably a criminal investigation division agent, and you're in big trouble. Okay? So what I'm going to tell you to do if that happens is shut your mouth. Do not talk to anybody. Say, I'll be happy to talk to you after I have my lawyer. Just stop. They're going to take you to jail, and you have serious problems, okay? But back when I was a criminal defense attorney, I cannot tell you how many cases I could have won but for what the client said to the cops when they were trying to talk their way out of the situation, okay? I would have won like 60% more cases if they just stopped talking. So this is very rare, but if they have a gold badge and a gun, it's a criminal problem, you've got a problem, you should get a lawyer and you should stop talking. If it's a revenue officer, and that's that person that I referenced earlier, they come out, they have kind of like a plastic badge, plastic ID card. Well, what I typically tell them is, I'm so glad you're here. I've been meaning to deal with this for years. I have a rep, and I'll have him or her call you. Don't invite him in the house. That's what people do.
Oh, my God.
They invite him in the house. And so, Scott, if a revenue officer gets invited into your house, he's going to see your stuff, right? Yeah. If you've got nice stuff, is it kind of an inference that you have money? Kind of. Yeah. Now, if you're living out in the rusty RV, with weeds growing through the floorboards, maybe invite them in. I don't know, but generally speaking, you should probably get a rep of some sort, a tax attorney, an accountant, or an enrolled agent to help you with your tax problem. Because here's the deal. Those government employees represent who? The United States government, okay? You need somebody on your side that understands the situation just as well as they understand it on their side.
Oh, yeah. All right. I like this one. Can an individual file bankruptcy and include taxes that they owe to the government?
I wish I had questions this good on my radio show. Serious. That's a great question. And the answer is yes, taxes can be just discharged in bankruptcy. I'm gonna quote 3 rules here real quick. They're just time rules. Nobody's gonna really understand. I'm gonna say it anyway. The returns have to have been due for at least 3 years, including extensions. They have to have been filed for at least 2 years if they were filed late, and the taxes have to have been assessed for at least 240 days. Then there's a whole patchwork of state bankruptcy rules. So there's 50 different, or 51 or 52 different, schemes. But yes, taxes can be discharged in bankruptcy, but you really need an expert to help you figure that out. And most bankruptcy lawyers, by the way, 9 out of 10 bankruptcy lawyers will tell you taxes cannot be discharged in bankruptcy.
Oh, wow. All right, let me ask you this. Let's say I don't have IRS issues. Are you doing classes or anything in the Tampa area where you are to let people know what can happen and what they should do?
I really don't, but I have over 200 videos on my website at getirshelp.com. Okay. So that's a really good resource. And then we have I want to say we have 40 or 50 radio episodes where we try to cover pretty much everything. I get a lot of web traffic on my website, and I know a lot of that is from competitors and people who do exactly what I do. And you know what? I'm totally fine with it because this problem is so large in scope that I just want more people to get helped. Occasionally, I'd say a couple times a year, I get an email from someone who says, I watched your videos and I handled my own tax problem. And you know what, Scott? That makes me feel good.
Yeah, you did a good job teaching them. Now, you're in Florida. I live in Georgia. Could you help me if I got in trouble?
Yeah, I actually can represent clients in all 50 states, and I have represented clients in all 50 states. And here's a cool stat. I've represented clients on every continent except for Antarctica. And I just can't get somebody from Antarctica to call me.
Wow. Hey, man, we got to do a thing now. We've got to get all 7 handled. We've
got
to make sure you get all the continents out of the way so we can do this.
There's a bunch of Americans down in Antarctica during our winter.
Right.
Summer down there, right? So there's I've done the research. There's 20 or 30,000 people down there. There's definitely somebody with a wage levy.
All right, that's our goal now. We've got to get somebody from Antarctica to be your client, and we're good. All right, let me give you one last question. We got 2 minutes left, and then I'll let you go. All right, my biggest question is, how can people find you, and how long's your show, and how can they listen?
My show is it's an hour from 9 a.m. on Thursdays. That's Eastern time. It's on 10:10 a.m. in Tampa, or 98.5 HD2 in Tampa. But it's also on iHeartRadio. So if you just search on iHeartRadio for IRS Solution Attorney, it should show up. If not, you can go to the 1010am.com website and you can listen to us live. There's also recordings of every episode on the podcast, on the app, and on the website. So there's plenty of ways to find me. The website's getirshelp.com. I have some others, but that's the best one with the most information. And that's how you do it.
Sweet. Darrin, thank you so much for taking the time to drop by and answer my questions.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks, Scott.
All right, brother. Take care. That's
Take
Darrin
care.
Mish. Go ahead and go by his website, getirshelp.com. Be one of the greatest things you do. Tell you what, maybe you don't have problems now. You could one day. Go by. It's got over 200 videos loaded up on there. I've watched them. Darrin's a friend of mine, and I trust him. He's one of the best attorneys that I've ever met, one of the most competent, and one of the most knowledgeable. Those are the things you want when you go in and you need somebody to rep you with the IRS. Again, let me give you this website, getirshelp.com. When I get back, don't worry, the mailbag's coming up. I shortchanged you on the first hour. I'm going to double up on the second hour. If you got a question for me, questions at scottferrell.com or 706-889-9700. I'll be right back.